Have you ever been guilt-tripped at the dinner table? Those moments when laughter and joy morph into unhealthy pressures that prick our consciousness like a needle. Growing up in a culture where food is love, I watched as culinary traditions bound my family together, allowing us to celebrate milestones and share our lives over steaming platters. But what happens when this beloved tradition shifts into a tool for emotional manipulation? Today, I invite you to join me on a deeply personal journey about my experience navigating the choppy waters of family relationships and the incredible, yet oftentimes exhausting, dynamics between cultures. This is the story of my relationship with my mother-in-law, Isabella, a woman who wielded her cooking like a sword, and in doing so pushed my patience to the limits. In this saga of culinary contention, I found an unexpected path to understanding and respect. Spoiler alert. This is a tale steeped in a sprinkle of revenge and garnished with lessons in family dynamics. I'll never forget the email I received just days before Thanksgiving. The family holiday that once exuded warmth and togetherness now loomed over me like a dark cloud. It felt as if I'd been sentenced to a holiday exile. My mother-in-law, Isabella, had always prided herself on being the ultimate chef in the family. Her Indian cooking deemed legendary, at least by her own admission. But when the invitation arrived, via a hastily assembled email, the casual cruelty seeped out in every line. "Dear family," it began, each word seemingly sharper than the next, "I have decided to simplify this year's Thanksgiving. Due to your consistent unwillingness to embrace my cooking, I feel it would be best to not have you here this year." I read those words over and over, each time hearing them echo painfully in my mind. Despite my previous efforts to participate in family meals and sincerely try her legendary curries and samosas, this letter felt like a swift kick to the gut, and all for not loving her food the way she desired. By extension, it felt as though she was rejecting me as much as she was rejecting my identity. Upon receiving the disinvitation, I found my stomach twisting into knots. It wasn't just about being disinvited. It was about feeling as though I had failed at something deeply ingrained, the concept of family hospitality and shared love through food. In her mind, if I didn't praise her cooking, it was as if I were rebuking her love. Boundaries had been militarized, and while I understood where her desire for control stemmed from, it didn't soften the sting. As I leaned back against the cool touch of my kitchen counter, I reflected on my marriage and my early experiences with Isabella. I had entered a complex arena where food was synonymous with familial love and obligation, something that made sense in her head but felt entirely foreign to me. Growing up in a Chinese household, I had been immersed in an expansive palette of flavors and culinary stories, dishes crafted to showcase love and togetherness, demonstrating harmony rather than discord. While my parents had raised me to respect and honor culinary traditions, they also instilled in me the value of choice, the freedom to prefer one dish over another without judgment. We passed traditions along in a way that was celebratory, showcasing our identities without the threat of exclusion. Weck-weaned flavors from generations before while also carving out room for the new. Yet in Isabella's home, it was a different world altogether. Every family gathering seemed to throw me farther into the deep end. The first time I met Isabella, I was overwhelmed by her anticipation that I would love everything she served, every curry, every spicy morsel. I tried my best to be gracious. After all, cooking was her way of expressing affection, even if it was laced with expectations. But as the weeks turned into months, and my impressions of her dishes didn't stick in the overarching narrative, our dinners quickly soured into passive hostility. I recalled instances where the dinners started with enthusiasm, her vibrant recipes enticing my appetite. Isabella would linger by the stove, her pride spiraling higher each time someone complimented her cooking. Yet those same praises felt like laden weights when I would politely decline an offering of her spicy specialties. I could almost hear her internal dialogue. How can she turn her nose up at my food? How ungrateful. Her criticisms came not in anger, but wrapped in her passive-aggressive charm. A gentle smile masking her discontent was often accompanied by comments like, "Perhaps I could make it spicier next time for those who truly appreciate a real meal." It left me trapped, longing to defend my palate, yet knowing it'd only burn bridges. I grew increasingly mindful of her barbs, always ready to take aim, while my husband consistently leapt to my defense. This roller coaster of good intentions and hurt feelings seemed never-ending, an emotional game where the stakes were steep. Every dinner felt like I was digging a deeper hole, only to be reminded that my digs might leave me further ostracized. Yet there came a point where I realized, with painful clarity, that if I was to survive this relationship, I had to arm myself with strategies rather than resentments. After the Thanksgiving email, I made a conscious decision to adjust my approach. I decided to bring my own homemade dishes on visits to her house, a gesture that, on the surface, seemed accommodating but was, in truth, a subtle form of rebellion. This time, I would not allow passive aggression to envelop me. It was time to draw boundaries. Rather than engaging in the usual back-and-forth guilt trips about her cooking, I would present mine as a gift. Each week, I would prepare an array of popular Chinese dishes, symbolizing my heritage while imbibing a sense of familial joy. And every time I offered those foods, I did so with the hope that Isabella would relax her iron grip on the dinner table. However, Isabella's responses were nearly uniform and completely disheartening. "I'm not really hungry," she would insist, brushing off my carefully crafted meals before turning to the lavish spread of her own preparation. Each time, the sting of her dismissal felt reinforced, stacking upon the layers of tension that ran thick within our interactions. But slowly and surely, I began to notice something with rising satisfaction. Every time I visited, the contrast of my colorful, handcrafted dishes next to her heavy, spice-laden offerings began to raise eyebrows. Family members were engaging with my dishes, asking for the recipes, and displaying genuine interest in the diversity of flavors. In that little space where observance and acknowledgement coalesced, I could feel a shift underfoot. Each dinner became more of a chess match as I attempted to follow her pattern too, bringing not just plates, but the hope of establishing parity in our culinary exchanges, thinly veiling the ongoing tension with overt acts of kindness. I continued my charade of joy to embody the acceptance I longed for, while the truth remained that I was quietly inches from pandemonium. So it was through quiet resolves that I realized my preparations had become less just food, and more the means to reclaim my identity. I unearthed a confidence I didn't realize I possessed. Strength was born out of these culinary exchanges. My plates were more than nutrient delivery systems. They were representations of the clash of our disparate worlds meeting with culinary grace. They acted as beacons of my culture's vibrance, a reminder that no cuisine is superior to another, even if a hidden agenda lay strewn across Isabella's table. At this point in our familial battlefield, I could feel the subtle tension shifting. My husband supported the shift, cautiously nudging Isabella toward a time when food could bridge our family differences rather than deepen the swells of animosity. Yet still, there was an undercurrent that could not be ignored, discomfort and fear wrapped up in the guise of unfamiliarity and resentment. My compassion began to intertwine with strategy. If I could navigate these meals skillfully, perhaps I could become a key to unlocking her rigid expectations. Thus, with a hope worthy of a Hallmark movie, I strived for a fusion of our culinary worlds, continually working to diffuse the landmines well ahead of time. More time spent in the kitchen morphed into an understanding of spices, flavors shared lovingly together, halfway immersing ourselves in the simple love of food itself. The breakthrough came unexpectedly one Sunday afternoon, when my husband and I invited his family over for a casual meal. I prepared an elaborate version of fried rice, infusing textures and colors akin to a vivid painting, a vibrant melody of contrasting flavors. This time, I topped it with a mild, fragrant curry that Isabella often prepared, a subtle homage to her culinary dynasty, while enriching my dish with a dash of my own traditions. My hope was clear. Perhaps the shared flavors would create not just food, but a safe entry point for conversation. Plus, showing our guests that this culinary collision could be a lovely exploration seemed critically vital. My husband was cautiously optimistic, yet supported my efforts wholly. As we drew closer to Christmas, the complexities began swirling visibly in the air. With people coming together from various relatives' households, hopes were high that this gathering might showcase our extended family's potential for vibrant growth. The energy in my home buzzed against the muted winter sky, bringing an air of expectancy ahead of the big day. The misunderstanding for Isabella's culinary intentions grew palpable alongside my own feeling of advocacy within our family sphere. I decided then that this gathering was to be symbolic of a breakthrough, where our family traditions could embrace flavors long separated by misunderstandings and cultural biases. As I worked tirelessly in the kitchen, flavors danced on my palate, tempting me to spin the narrative into something flavorful yet graceful. The moment the family arrived, their cheerful chatter enveloped my heart. My stomach fluttered with excitement. This could be the push we needed, bringing both families together amid trays teeming with zest. As I laid out the spread, I could see Isabella cornered at a distance, her gaze flicking back and forth between my dishes and her own forgotten offerings. It was as if the very essence of command had started to shift. Among the laughter and jests, with everyone gathering plates, I offered Isabella my fried rice dish. "I made this specially for our family gathering," I said, trying to match her enthusiasm as best as I could. "It has your spices mixed with a little love from my background." Her response was slow, almost cautious. "I'm sure it'll be too different for my taste," she retorted without missing a beat, focusing more on remaining closed off than allowing me a ray of hope. But rather than folding under her disdain, I pushed forward, determined to engage her. "Would you be willing to try it? Consider it a new celebration rather than a rejection of culture," I ventured, my heart racing as I opened that door. It was bold, unprecedented, and carried the weight of my entire vision. That perhaps food had enough power to serve not just as a form of nourishment, but as a vehicle for this healing journey. I encouraged my husband to engage with Isabella, and he started to bridge our conversations about the meaning behind our foods, sharing humorous stories about how each dish represented moments in our lives. As the holiday dinner continued, we spiraled to an unexpected outcome, revealing the vulnerability Isabella had hidden beneath her stern exterior. I could see the visible wariness etched in her brows, a woman wedged in between the roles of a protective mother and a dreadful tyrant within her kitchen. Faced with the quintessential question of identity versus love, she slowly engaged more, taking tentative bites of my dishes as the family encouraged her. With each piece of fried rice she tentatively ate, I could feel a faint crack in her impenetrable shell. Could it be? Perhaps Isabella had started to recognize the beauty in our culinary differences, realizing that instead of eradicating one another's preferences, we merely enriched the world together through flavor. Our conversations tightened as we layered traditions, witnessing a transformation from adversarial to harmonious gesturing through simply understanding our roots in tandem. As the laughter circulated through the room and warmth enveloped our surroundings, it became apparent she was dropping her defenses slowly, allowing herself to enjoy new flavors rather than wield them as weapons. It marked the vibrant pivot I had quietly observed, a culmination of emotional growth built on trust and community laughter. Yet, as the evening progressed, her complicated feelings surfaced in passing comments, illustrating the inner struggle she faced. "I can't believe you made this," she remarked, her voice wavering slightly. "You know, I always liked to think I was the only one who cooked the best around here." "Perhaps, instead of competing, we can simply collaborate," I suggested quietly, attempting to lift the heavy weight that loomed like a burden between us. The shift was palpable. Conversations flowed more freely as familial ties began to reforge themselves through a shared meal, breaking habits of guilt and alternating expectations. As we reached dessert, I proposed another conceptual delicacy, a humble yet delightful take on mango pudding. I had fashioned it using techniques from both Chinese and Indian culinary traditions, and with it, I featured almond milk alongside whiffs of cardamom, tying in notes of nostalgia from Isabella's world while ensuring my heritage glimmered, sparkling with creativity. It resembled our journey intertwined in harmony more than platitudes layered in intolerance. I carefully shared its backstory, how it united our different cultures, and how each spoonful contained a gentle reminder of acceptance. With little hesitation, my husband added, "Mango pudding was always a family affair, a unifier, something fun and sweet for everyone." Isabella tried my dessert, pausing as she slowly glanced at me, In that moment, she reflected on everything we had experienced together, the complexity surrounding our food and families intertwining. Just like making meals, the richness of human connection is best served warm, allowing that tenderness to coat the unanticipated layers. When she finally spoke, it was with an unexpectedly softer tone as she leaned in, almost conspiratorially. "You aren't half bad with your cooking, you know," she smiled, a hint of mischief in her eyes. "What would you think about teaching me some of your moves?" At that moment, all the friction between us seemed to dissipate into the air, reverberating around the dinner room, sparking laughter among family members who had observed our emotionally charged evolution. Here we were, once adversaries in the kitchen, now allying ourselves amidst brewing laughter. The tension that had defined our cooking battles morphed into celebratory banter, trading stories of how cooking had shaped our identities and aspirations. Isabella began to open up about her journey, reflecting on how her family fostered traditions and dictums, many of which rested precariously on traditional notions of who was favored and who remained an unwelcomed guest. As we shared dessert that night, the cozy air hanging between us tasted sweet, not just from the mango pudding, but from the realization of what had transpired. At that moment, I knew we had diffused the battle that had defined our interactions for too long. The lighter tone shifted the dynamics within the room entirely. Laughter echoed as jokes flowed back and forth, weaving new family stories from those recently shared memories. Together, we began nurturing harmony built on understanding, showing respect for each culture, while carving pathways of friendship rather than rivalry. Our shared victory wasn't just about cooking. It became a reconsideration of how relationships could thrive on openness rather than closed doors, finally merging to cover vast culinary atmospheres rather than rehashing archaic expectations. Reflecting on those months filled with tension, filled with the pressure of function-focused gatherings devoid of laughter or joy, I felt an overwhelming wave of satisfaction wash over me. The pursuit of respect won out over competition, and it offered a glimpse of a new beginning. The new year was a welcome breath of fresh air for everyone in our family, warm but also invigorating. With this now blooming relationship between Isabella and me, we agreed to keep sharing meals that reflected our unique heritages while appreciating each other's culinary skills, rather than closing in on competition. Isabella learned to embrace dishes from my culture without presiding as the sole highlight of every meal, asking for tips on balancing spices to suit every palate. Our kitchen felt filled not only with aromatic culinary potentials, but also with the laughter of a shared connection, a love built on flavor. In the weeks leading up to New Year's, our family decided to hold a potluck to celebrate our evolving sense of community. I offered to host, while Isabella took on her signature curry dishes, fully prepared to engage with the feast this time rather than standing aloof with tension. I felt her excitement hanging in the air, sensing a tangible eagerness to collaborate. Throughout the potluck, we all indulged with flair, focusing our attention on the myriad dishes showcasing traditions from various families represented. Striking conversations developed from explorations around the buffet, with everyone finding common threads binding us through food, heritage, and affection. As more family members joined us, previously divided factions began mingling in delightful harmony. Our split was dissolving in the sheer delight evident among all our loved ones who joyfully accompanied us after a long year's worth of misunderstanding. That evening, as the final guests took their leave and the last remnants of food began to fade into the refrigerator, I exchanged a candid look with Isabella, a silent acknowledgement that our relationship had transitioned into something deeper as the new year symbolized a fresh start for us both. With this transformative journey marked in heartwarming exchanges, I had shown the power of setting boundaries, understanding that navigating differences doesn't mean disregarding heritage. It was about opening up and allowing love, one infused with nourishment encased in flavors and identities essential to our growth as a family, subjected to laughter rather than manipulation. Food transformed into the center of our family, led by both my and Isabella's love for each other, compelling us to take delicate leaps towards understanding rather than repeat the same cycles. As we began forging this new culinary path, I realized that setting boundaries is not merely about saying no. It is also about creating space for healthy respect and understanding. So here we are now, reflective and renewed, a family where respect is valued more than ensuring the dominance of any single dish. As we create our meaningful identity, I now recognize how moments of love unify us on a base level we never fathomed before. I leave you with this. Have you ever faced the challenge of reconciling cultural expectations with your own needs? How did you navigate that space? Let's share our thoughts about the incredible journey of food and family in the comments below, in hopes of inspiring brighter walks through the dining table of life, one hearty meal at a time.